It's the worst of the CBC for January 8th, 2021, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. And never has that been more true than today. Honestly, I need to start drinking after 1 hour of CBC and to prep myself for the family Friday night Zoom chat where it's just going to be hypocritical histrionics. But I got a preview of it on today's CBC. So, of course, the storming of the Capitol is the number one thing. Now, they also went into the Iranian flight going down, but I'm going to do a separate video on that. And just every falsehood, every trope was employed, okay? And listen, whataboutism is bad, and it's not a justification for the riots, okay? Matt Walsh said it great. If you condemn the Black Lives Matter riots in the spring, but then you're okay with the violence yesterday, well, then you're a ridiculous hypocrite. But if you excused the riots in the spring and summer, and then all of a sudden you're concerned about violence this week, well, you're a ridiculous hypocrite. And the media are ridiculous hypocrites. And not only that, but they've gone to the more dangerous part. And this is the real fear of the Biden administration is, with complete control, like, how far are they going to push people? All right? And just think of it this way. Okay, every center-right outlet that covered the American election, YouTube just nuked them. The bigger ones, like Crowder, were able to get back on, but we were just nuked, okay? And there's people like me who try and be reasonable on all these different issues and give sort of a middle ground and don't go to the extremes. I mean, listen, if I had taken a hardline stance and just been like, the vaccine is blah, 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 and went so anti-vax, I would have gained a lot more followers. And if I had just gone so hardline and said, all the anti-vaxxers are stupid, it's all stupid, I would have got more followers. But because I tried to parse out, okay, here's sort of the legitimate concerns of the COVID-19 vaccination from a scientific point of view, and here are the illegitimate concerns. I think my audience likes that. But you can all agree, by taking extreme positions, you grow more. How long till I get nuked off YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is under this? Because that's what they're pushing for now. And you see the CBC. There's violent rhetoric and online social media. What are social media companies doing to prevent the spread of extremism? And do you remember what CBC did? Okay, in Canada, we actually did have a terrorist, a radical Islamic terrorist, storm our parliament and kill people. Nowhere were there calls for censorship from the CBC. Nowhere were there calls for crackdown online on the spread of Islamic rhetoric, Islamic extremist rhetoric online. Nowhere. And every single ridiculous thing was put forward. So they claimed that, it took Donald Trump more than 24 hours to condemn the violence. No, while it was going on, he made a video saying, stop the violence, and then Twitter censored that video. Every single Republican in office said, stop it. Every single one within the hour. Every single one, 100%. Whereas tons of Democratic Congress people and senators and representatives actively encouraged the riots. Kamala Harris actively encouraged a bailout fund for rioters that encouraged more rioting, because in a lot of states, when you bail someone out, the money actually goes to the person who's bailed out, not the person who paid the bail. So you had these left-wing organizations creating these giant bail funds endorsed by celebrities and Kamala Harris, right? They were bailing out rioters. So what happened is you would spend a night rioting, and then someone would bail you out for $5,000, $10,000. Then you would just spend a night in jail, and then you'd be given a $5,000, $10,000 reward. And then, oh my God, you just made a friggin' 5 figures rioting for a night. What should you do tomorrow? I don't know. Get out and do your job and riot some more. Therefore, you can get bailed out again. And then the suckers who paid your bail, it's ridiculous. And Kamala Harris actually encourage this. So anyone who's saying Trump needs to be removed, and of course there's calls for impeachment of Trump. There's 13 days left and he conceded the election. What are we doing? What are we doing? Do we want a civil war? Like, I have the amount of glee, the utter sheer glee from the mainstream media and the left over the fact that finally the Trump supporters got a bit violent. Finally. And then of course they played if this was black people, this is white privilege. Someone was shot and killed. Right? And there was violence. I mean, they're like, the police just let them. Then they cut to a scene of the police throwing punches at the rioters. So, I mean, if they were black, what would have happened? If they were black, half the police would have taken a knee and done the black power symbol, and the other half of the police would have been pissed. And if they were friggin' Trump supporters, half the police, that half would be attacking the third, and the other half would be like, this is bullshit. Because this is where we are as a society. And we're pretending like, if it was black, we see a stark contrast because in the summer, the National Guard was actually called into the Black Lives Matter protest. True. Fact check, true. That was after months and weeks of sustained rioting. Not right away. Remember in Portland, where they're actually firebombing a federal building? And then the Portland mayor wouldn't do anything. and the governor of Oregon wouldn't do anything, all pretending that it was, oh, the Chaz and the Chop. This is just a fun little cultural thing. You know, the Chaz, they literally took over parts of the city and declared autonomous zones multiple times. And the media's like, oh, well, it's a summer of love type feeling. And then when Trump finally called the National Guard to stop it, that's fascism. Oh, the fascism. It's so much fascism. Like, sorry, but I don't have to listen to any of the stuff in the mainstream media, and neither do you. And my question is, for people like me, who will immediately say, you know what, don't storm Capitol Hill, don't riot, you know, there's better ways. I mean, the violence didn't work, right? We were going to get a debate in the Senate on election fraud, and that was ruined because they were pressured because of the violence. It actually backfired. Now, the only hope you have of getting the truth is Dominion suing Sidney Powell, right? And her ability to sort of countersue and then get access to their information in court. Like, that's the only way you have now. But that's years down the line. It'll be irrelevant by then. So violence, you know, it didn't work, right? But how long until you turn people like me more radical? Because how long until the authoritarian, totalitarian left says, you know, my ideas are too dangerous because, you know, Daniel once said, hey, look at this video in Georgia of them wheeling in a bunch of votes. You know, we should look at that. And I've always been the one saying I don't think Trump's election fraud claims are going to play out well in court. Like, he might be able to overturn one state, maybe two, but I don't think he'll be able to overturn multiple courts and be able to do that. But how long until that type of thought is, you know, I have to be nuked, right? Then I get taken away from Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. Then I come back and, like, you've literally taken away my ability to make a living. I know you take me off Patreon, you take me off PayPal, right? You make it so people, like, literally can't pay me. Like, of course, going to pop up on, like, Parler and Gab. And then how long until I'm more radical? That, you know, think of it. So this is the first time we're on the Bose-Mary Barton scale of bias. It is a 9 billion out of 10. 9 billion. Because everything they said was a stone-faced lie with the intent purpose of pushing a totalitarian ideology. Every word out of their mouth was a stone-faced lie with totalitarian undertones, and it's disgusting. And it's driving me crazy, and I need a fucking nuke the CBC. Figuratively. But how long until that turns into literally? Because you turn me into a crazy person. So I'm me, you're you, like, subscribe, donate, who cares? Who cares? Just never watch the CBC again, because it will literally turn you into a crazy person.